You're a freak now. Yeah.
What?
Oh, darling.
Dad.
It's okay.
Hey guys, it's Rick. I'm Rick James Bricks, and that is one big pile of bricks with our awesome guest, Jayden Warn, Paralympian, gold medalist, all that stuff. Jayden, how are you, man?
I'm good. Yeah, really good.
We're excited to have you on. We've got a permit. He's allowed to be here. He's vaccinated.
That's exactly right.
Thank you so much for coming along. You've just returned from Tokyo, from the Olympic Games. How did you go?
Yeah, it wasn't too bad. It wasn't the
Yeah.
the campaign that we were hoping for, and I guess expected to have. Coming out of the team winning in London, winning the first Paralympic gold, and then I was on the Rio team, and we went into that, top seeders, and went in there and won gold there as well. So coming into this one, it was sort of like, everyone's talking about a three-peat, and we were, more than, we should have been more than capable of doing it. But I think just with the lead up and the restrictions, and we got on the charter flight in Melbourne, and we picked up some guys in Cairns on the way over, and that was the first time the full team had been together since March last year. So
Wow, that's a massive break, and I think too there was so much pressure to repeat success.
I think that was the thing too. Is it was everyone else is it's sort of like, once you're a Paralympian, you're always a Paralympian and that. But I think the pressure on our team, just from everyone, from ourselves mainly, obviously with the pressure we were under with lack of training and like all that sort of stuff. I think we put so much pressure on ourselves, and going into it was a lot more nerve-wracking. It was a different feeling than going into, say, Rio 5 years ago.
Just one sec, Caroline. Caroline and I had something made for you to make the Tokyo experience a little bit better. So Dan, our cameraman's just going to pass me something to gift you. We had something 3D printed.
No way.
Yes.
Dude, this is 3D printed. It was made by a guy, Mike, from Adelaide. Shout out to Mike.
That is unbelievable.
Obviously, don't let your son get to it because it might break.
No,
but we had a
break it.
full-size Jayden made, dude, so that's for you.
That's unbelievable. That's bloody awesome.
Yeah, man,
you.
we just wanted to make you something because I know you were having a terrible time and all the, you had to be in quarantine and all the travel and missing family and friends, and like, if it was a different place, Carolina would have actually been there to support you, but this is our way of supporting you.
Yeah, no, that is unbelievable. Thank you so much.
It's so cool, right? Like,
where's the mustache?
oh yeah, well,
Wow.
Meg said no mustache, so
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. Yeah, that's more than fair. No, that is.
it's really cool,
that
right?
is
Yeah, it's super cool. We're
amazing.
really, really happy with it. It took us back and forth with the guy to get it like the scale right, because Lego wheelchairs, obviously, the 3D print them's not the easiest thing.
Yeah, I know. That's more than fair. That is awesome.
Yeah, dude, it's super, super cool.
That's what you can remember your,
You take it,
Tokyo
you take it,
Olympics
right?
by, yes.
Yeah, no, that's unbelievable.
Yeah,
Thank
no,
you
dude,
so much
that's
for that.
all good. So do you think if you had your time over, would you actually gone to the Tokyo Olympics now that you've looked back on your journey getting there with all the lockdowns and the restrictions placed on the team?
Well, originally, we sort of had, with everything that was going on, unlike other Paralympics and that sort of thing, we had the opportunity to pull out of it.
Wow.
Just as a player,
Yeah.
if we didn't feel comfortable going, both, with family, obviously being away for 5 weeks, obviously the health risks and that sort of thing. We had that opportunity to do that, and we did have one player that decided not to go, and then he ended up with a couple of, team changes and stuff very close to when we were actually leaving. He decided to come.
Oh, wow.
I rattled my brain for weeks.
I know we had multiple conversations about if it was safe for you to go because, I'm obviously sick, but, whatever. Like, it's always that fear of the unknown about COVID, right? Like, we're the most at-risk group than anyone else.
Exactly right.
And there's no real support for the disability sector. Like, I think even with the rollout's not potentially done with all the disability sector. They haven't finished it yet, which just blows my mind. But anyway,
we were quite concerned. Obviously,
yeah, we were
for
really worried. We were talking to
Yeah.
Meg quite a lot for Instagram and stuff because we were concerned. I was like, man, I don't want him to get COVID. Like, even though we're vaccinated and whatever, but still, like,
But having
the risk,
said,
right?
Having said that, you had to decide not only were you going to go, but then if you didn't go, that may have jeopardised some of your other teammates' position in the team, right?
Yeah, well, that's exactly right. And so, like, from the get-go, my family and Meg they were sort of, like, against me going. just purely for obviously health and mental reasons. Like I was struggling a lot, just stress and anxiety and that just in the lead up, trying to rack my brain about what I was going to do and all that sort of stuff. And they just pretty much said, it's going to be easier if you just don't. But then, on the other hand, the team's my family as well. And and after weeks and weeks of rattling myself and stressing myself out about it, even Meg turned around and just said, just do it. You're gonna if you don't go, doesn't matter the outcome, you're gonna regret it more than how you're gonna feel if you don't go.
I think it's always the fear of the unknown, right? Because like Carol and I talk about business all the time, and if you don't take the plunge, you're not going to know if it works or not.
Yeah.
And I think that that the whole Paralympic journey, Olympic journey for everybody involved was a difficult one for everybody, because not only are you leaving Australia and you can't have your sport network with you, it's the constant quarantine stops along the way to get you there and get you back.
Yeah, it was a nightmare. It was done pretty well, and like from the get-go, my obviously being fully vaxxed and that sort of stuff, like the whole Paralympic team was like, me actually catching COVID wasn't my main stress. I actually wasn't too stressed like about me medically if I was to get it.
Yeah.
Like it was more that if I did, then and I get quarantined over there, how long was I going to be over there for? How long was I going to be away from? 5 weeks was already.
Because there was a few. I don't know if it was in the Paralympics, but I know the Olympics there was a few COVID scares with the Olympic guys.
There was in the Paralympics, but there was one in the French Paralympic team.
Oh wow!
Like wheelchair rugby.
That's scary.
I think it was, and that's the thing too, that it wasn't just us. Like we as a country of Australia, we were pretty locked down in our building.
Yeah.
We couldn't go to the dining hall. All that sort of stuff. Like they had us pretty tightly locked down. But then all these other countries that they were free to do whatever. But if we played one of them and then
and also too,
game,
people have seen wheelchair rugby, and it's a very close contact, intimate sport. If those players aren't vaccinated, and you're breathing in each other's space and you're clashing with each other, it must be incredibly hard.
Yeah.
It's an incredibly physical sport. So when I saw it, I remember you've been in the store multiple
Here
times.
comes our fourth guest. Mickey's floating around, so he might just pop in a second.
The last time you came in, I remember we gave you a few things, and I said you had them on your lap, and I said, "Oh, do you want me to hold those for you?" And you said, "Oh, no, I'm fine." And then I saw you out in the rugby field, just shunting people, and it's just so physical, and you're attacking constantly. And I just said to Rick, "Well, he can hold his own. He doesn't need help from anyone."
That's what drew me to the sport originally. I coming from before my accident. I had an accident when I was just shy of 17, and before that I grew up dirt bikes, BMX, skateboarding, just anything on wheels that had any potential of hurting myself. That was me. Doing stupid things in paddock bombs. It was just my childhood, and when I went through Royal Talbot rehab and I saw wheelchair rugby, I was just like, wow.
I think it's amazing that you found something that could get you out of the mental stuff of the reality, really, of being in a wheelchair, right? Like it's a big change.
Rugby, from the get-go, was a massive, as much as it's over the years, there's been massive stresses and the pressure of different comps and all that sort of stuff, and but overall, it doesn't matter, what happened in Tokyo and the lead up of the last 18 months and that, there's not one moment of rugby that I regret. Mentally, just away from the sport, it helped me so much. I used to say that riding BMX was my escape from reality, and then that was I found rugby, and that was what rugby was. I could go out there and just smash people around, and it sort of just took your mind off that. That's all you were thinking about on court. And it was the same in Tokyo. We, as much as all the stresses were there, and it was the weirdest competition. We went from Brazil, and we had record 17,000 people.
Wow,
crowds,
that's a lot.
And that was, a couple of hundred Australians, and whoever other country were playing, they had spectators, but it was 16,000 Brazilians.
Oh wow, that's awesome.
And it's just they just the noise.
I think it was hard too, managing an Olympic sport or a Paralympian sport during a pandemic is a very difficult time for anyone, right?
Well, that's it. the logistics of getting us there was just insane in that. And, you know, like Paralympics Australia did an amazing job just getting us there. And, you know, and as stressful as it was and as hard as it was and as locked down as we were, they still got us all back safely.
Oh, that's awesome.
Like they, you know, one of our players that went down sick, not COVID related, he got flown out 2 days early. But
yeah, we were following that because I said to Megan, who's sick? Because like they weren't mentioning the name, and I was like trying to figure out, and you know, I was like, I don't know. And then Megan obviously let me know, and I was like, oh wow, poor guy. Like imagine going all the way there, getting sick, and having to come home. Like,
well, that's it. You know, we felt for him. That was his first Paralympics, and like, you know,
wow, that's major.
He, you know, worked his ass off to get there, and then, you know, you go down with something that it was just, you know, he couldn't help.
And
you know?
Being a player down, that really affects the combination of players that you can have on the court, right?
Very, very much. So wheelchair rugby is all about obviously classifications. Like it runs from a 0.5 to a 3.5, and I'm a high functioning player, so I'm like a 3-pointer. But you know, we run on lineups. You know, my main lineups are 3-5-3, a 1 and a 0.5. Like people see the sport and they don't really understand it too much, and they go, you know, why is this person on?
Yeah.
You know, if they're like a lower functioning player, why don't you put all the high functioning players on?
But you can't because it's points, right?
Yeah. You can only have 8 points on court at once. So it's like our player that went down being a 0.5, they're like dire to our lineups. Like there's every lineup, you know, we need one, and our number one main lineup has 2.
Oh wow!
And we only had 2.5s, and you know, one of them going down. You know, it was obviously heartbreaking for him and all that, and it was so disappointing, and we felt for him so much because it's like, you know, not only that is, you know, he's part of our main lineup, and that took our main impact lineup out of the way, and it just, you know, the coaching staff spent 6 months before the games doing all this research, obviously not being able to travel and play on other teams, and that we had a full playbook together, and then as soon as
you lose one
down,
just
Riley threw the playbook in the bin.
Riley Batt and Chris Bond together would often be together in the previous games, and then you'd have another couple of players coming in. But in that final game, we didn't see them together at all. Yeah. And then that explains why, because you didn't have the ability to bring in those 0.5s.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So the 2 3.5s, 2.5s is our main impact lineup. Like it's our, you know, really, really strong lineup. We bring that in for a couple of minutes, and that just changes the pace of the game. There's so much function out there and stuff like that. And then one of our 0.5s going down, we just couldn't bring that in, and it just, you know, our whole playbook just got thrown in the bin. We just had to start from scratch.
Well, I think too with the mental toll it takes, you know, the lead up to the Paralympics, which was meant to be 4 years, stretched out to 5, and then you lose a key player that you need. I don't think people really understand at home, and I don't think anyone can really understand, you know, Paralympians, it's completely different to normal Olympians, right? Like, you can get someone else jumping in and you'll be fine in the Olympics, but Paralympians, you lose that one key member, it ruins your whole dynamic.
Well, because you have to work within only having those 8 points, or sometimes isn't it 8.5 if you have a female on?
Yeah, so we've got a female player, Shay.
Yeah, Shay's cool.
Yeah,
so Shay's really cool.
Shay.
She's actually our first female Paralympian.
That's awesome.
For like our wheelchair for Australia.
That's cool.
So and she came out and just killed it. Like considering the pressure that she got put under, you know, the likes of even myself, like, you know, I wasn't meant to be, when I had to talk to the coach beforehand, I wasn't meant to be starting lineup in any games. I was going to come on halfway through the first quarter. We had this whole, you know, play thing, and then as soon as our player went out, it was just like the pressure that not only did obviously we lose that lineup, but the pressure on our other lineups, it was just like, now you've got to step up, which for the last however long, you know, that hasn't been.
Because you've been playing wheelchair rugby for like
start of 2013, I got on the Australian squad.
Oh wow, so 8 years, and then like you've doing the same thing that whole time.
Yep.
Tokyo comes along, a player goes down, and it changes everything.
Yeah, it threw a spanner in the works very much. Like but you know, and we
you gotta not be too hard on yourself. You guys did pretty well. Like
well, that's it. Like obviously, unfortunately, we lost out in the bronze game, and honestly, I think even the other teams were, with the lead up that we had compared to them, they were surprised
Yes.
in a nice,
Wow.
not even in a mean way, in a nice
No.
way, that they were surprised that we got us, and they were actually pretty worried once we got out
Wow.
there that you know how much, you know, they were like, oh god, like
Yeah.
that
Because
even
you
with
guys
the
have
lead
come
up.
out of like you've won 2 Paralympics back. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
so the last
like you're coming out of like 2 massive wins. They're scared. You're gonna be scared because you're like, oh, are we gonna be able to play against
well,
these
pretty
guys?
much since 2012, every other team in the world's been gunning for us. Like we've been
Wow.
number one for most of that time. I think we dropped back to second for 12 months there or something.
Wow.
But yeah, we've pretty much been number one on the rankings for so many years now, and it's like everyone's always been gunning for us, and it's like everyone always guns for that top team. And I think just, you know, I think the that extra 12 months that it was delayed helped other teams a lot more, and that was one of the biggest effects on us.
Yeah,
Like,
well,
it
they had an
really
extra year
ruined
of
us.
training, right?
And
Like,
I-
so there's a big
And we had
gap.
an extra year of no training.
Well,
Yeah.
that
Just-
Japanese team, they had, I believe he was a Canadian or an American coach that came in and was coaching them because they were looking for the world's best coach that they could bring across just to get
Oh,
that
wow.
competitive edge.
Yeah, so Kevin Orr, he's an American who previously before Japan was coaching Canada.
Mm-hmm.
So
Wow.
Oh, that's why
he
my
took
confusion. Yep.
he used to coach America, and then he was coaching Canada,
Mm-hmm.
and he took them to, you know, they got a silver in London, they got a silver at Worlds, and then they just missed out in Rio, and then after Rio, he moved to coach in Japan. They sort of poached him off them, and
Because they would have won, you know, the best of the best because it's their home, right?
yeah,
It's home
and
turf.
and Japan over the last since I started, like they went from like number 6 in the world to, you know, right up there. Like they just skyrocketed competitively, and you know, they wanted that edge. Like they needed that experience and that sort of stuff, and it helped them. Like they won. They took the world's gold off us in 2018.
Wow.
You know, on home soil, which was
Oh, really?
which is a big punch. Like, but
Yeah.
you know, like they came back and got us by 1 point in that final.
Oh, well, 1 point is, you know, it's different if you're getting smashed by 20 points.
Well, that's it. You know, it's. But then in saying that, it sort of hurts more that it was only 1 point. It's like it was only 1 point.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
but yeah, you know, it is what it is. And the lead up to it, you know, we had 2 training camps in the last 18 months, like since March last year, and they weren't full training camps either. You know, one of them, we had 2 of our guys couldn't make it there because of the floods in New South.
Yeah.
Another one of our players couldn't get there because of COVID related stuff like travel restrictions and stuff. And then the next camp, one of our players went down in the first training session with a he had to get stitches in his eye, like on his eyebrow, and I was out with a broken hand at that camp. So
Is that
Yeah.
at the camp you guys were training and you hurt yourselves at the camp, or was it before?
I hurt myself. I broke my hand about a couple of weeks before that.
Was it during play?
Yeah, playing just at a
Because
local.
Wow.
you have to have your hands, you know.
Your hands are very
obviously
exposed,
out
right?
here.
Like,
Yeah, I didn't. It actually got. I actually jacked someone up from behind, vertical spun him, and he swung back,
Oh,
and my hand was on my wheel, and he punched top of my hand and broke my hand. So that was just unfortunate.
Yeah.
That's happened. It's not the first. You know, in the training camp, we had a 4-day pre-comp training camp before we flew over. Like we went to Melbourne for 4 days, and then we flew to Tokyo.
yeah.
I redislocated my finger and put
Oh,
it back
wow.
in. Just
Oh,
the very first training session of that camp. Like it is what it is. Like I've done
And-
that a few times, and
I think it comes with a part of the sport, right? Because it is a rough. People don't understand how actually contact it is.
we
Like,
didn't
it's-
realize.
Only
We didn't. We
full
were very
contact, yeah.
naive about it, right? Like we've watched games and stuff before, but until the obviously Paralympics came up, we're like, oh, we have to watch it because Jayden's on.
You can be flung.
But it was like crushing. You're just
you
like,
can
oh wow.
be flung back, and you just literally have to wait until they pick you up. You can go, you know, your whole wheelchair. You can spin. You can fall out. You know, you've
Because
got
those
no
guys were
head
gunning for you and
protection.
Riley. Like you could see they were. As soon as
Yeah.
you guys were on, they were like, right, like they'll just come in after you straight away.
yeah, they always obviously we're the main in that lineup with me and Riles, and a 1.5. We're the main ball
Yeah.
carriers. So you know, to stop us is
It's massive.
one of their main goals. But even in saying that, like the impact even our lower functioning players have, like just you know,
Edmondson.
that's what I mean. We
Go
need them. Like
Edmondson.
Caroline's
It's a
like
bit of a dark
Caroline's
horse, you know?
we've been like stalking them on social media because we're trying to find out, like about them and what
Who's
they've been doing.
who and the ball would go to Edmondson, and all of a sudden he's scoring, and then it goes to, unexpectedly it would go to a 0.5 player, and they've got the ball, and one of your higher functioning players would quickly come and grab the ball.
Yeah.
But
it's a very fast-paced, intense game.
It is very fast-paced, and that's the thing too. That's how we've always played, and that's always been our edges. Different countries play in different ways, depending on their like players. Like some countries play a more slower, controlled, a lot more passing, that sort of thing. Whereas we've always just, our game is just
it's so intense.
We
were
keep
like,
up the pace, hit as hard as we can.
Well, you guys didn't slow down at all.
Riley will get the ball and he's off, and the other teams, they know they cannot catch him. He's gone.
Well, that's why Riles is the number one player in the
well,
world. Exactly. He's been
it.
playing since he's been playing since he was, I think he did his first Paralympics when he was 14.
And how old is he now?
32.
Yeah.
Wow.
But before that, of course, he was on a skateboard until he was 8 or so, I believe. He refused to get in a chair.
A little bit.
A little bit older than that.
It was a little bit
older
when he started playing rugby when he was around that 13,
Wow.
12, 13, and they said that if you're going to play rugby, you got to get in a chair. Like you can't push around on a skateboard. And that skateboard thing was just because he's stubborn, and he refused to use a wheelchair.
I can understand, I think,
yeah,
especially yourself, you're going from being able to use your legs bang into a wheelchair. It's a mental thing too, I think, struggling with the fact that you have to use one.
That was, like I was saying to you earlier, like obviously I can get on my feet a bit, and, I'm C5 incomplete quad. So, when I had my accident, they told me that I was, never going to walk again and all that. And
well, that smashes you 4-6.
Well, that's it. When they told me, they came in just after I come out of coma. I was in ICU.
Oh my god!
So it was sort of like I was still finding out what had happened because I was not really sure what was going on. I just knew I'd been in an accident. Well,
the accident wasn't from you guys being silly at all.
No.
What happened exactly?
So me and my mate were driving from Warragul up to the Cranbourne Shed, like skate park, which we did every single Sunday. That was our Sunday thing. We went up there for the night session, and we were between the towns where you turn across the highway to go into the freeway entrance. We just pulled up there like we normally would. We both looked both ways, and like at that point, I was day before my 70th birthday. My mate was on his P's. Like we were pretty gangster, The car was nearly on the ground, seats were nearly in the back seat. Like we were pretty cool. We it was a bit of a blind spot, but we both looked. We went to pull out. I went to fiddle with the music, and then as I looked up, a car just came, and that was he was doing a bit over 100, because that's when before our accident was sort of part of the reason it got changed along that road to 80, because there'd been plenty of accidents there.
And two, if someone's flying down 100 kilometers an hour, even though you could look both ways, by the time you look back, he's there.
It was just a blind spot, and it was just a lapse in concentration. It was, anyone could have done it. Like we weren't doing anything stupid. There was no, people always saw my mate was on his green peas, and they were like, oh, they must have been doing something stupid. It was like it wasn't. It was just literally.
I think that's the problem with people. They always assume the negative out of any situation, right? They're like, oh, he was doing burnouts. It's like, no, he was just turning and got collected.
So how many vertebrae did you shatter?
6.
Wow.
So the car hit my door, doing a bit over 100. His front left headlight would have hit about where my knees are, like where I was sitting. So hit me, the whole, pretty much, we got pushed up on the bank, but I was wearing a seatbelt, but I got thrown out the car because the seatbelt pillar was actually attached to the back door, sort of the whole back end. Like my mate climbed out, he stepped over the centre console onto grass because the whole back end of the car had been ripped off.
Wow.
His bike was against the back window, and it actually his front wheel went through the back window and was in a tree higher than the overpass that we were under. Oh my god! It just because they couldn't find it, and it just got slingshot out the back of the car. So it
it's you've been hit with force when it does something like that.
Well, that's it. All I remember is sort of I looked up, and then all of a sudden it was just like bang, and I don't really. It's patchy after that, very patchy until I woke up in hospital. But
and his injuries?
He had a pretty major concussion and a big gash on his head, but he actually sort of came to and climbed out, and he was the first one to me because I was laying outside the car because the seatbelt had wrapped itself around my legs, and my legs were in the footwell, and I was just sort of laying outside the car. and I was obviously unconscious. I don't really remember much of it at all. But yeah, so I ended up, I shattered my C5, 6, and 7 vertebrae in my neck, and it was actually the whiplash that done it. Not so much the impact.
Wow.
It was my head, because my head went right and it sort of squashed the disc and it sort of pushed it outside of my vertebrae a bit.
Oh, man.
And that's it sort of did the spinal cord damage.
Mm-hmm.
And then I put a straight fracture down my T1, 2, and 3 on my back. I broke my sternum. I had a laceration on my spleen, bruised liver, kidney, like all the rest of it. I had a massive gash across my head, which made it look a whole lot worse because I was covered in mud and blood and everything else. So, but yeah, so that was, I don't really, and I had bruising on my brain, so that's sort of just from the impact, my brain getting knocked around. So I had a bit of bruising on my brain, so a lot of memory loss and stuff from there, from that point. So it was a pretty high impact. Like, geez, like I was just, you know, they've told me many times, but you know, I know I'm lucky to be alive to survive it, and you know, it was just, it is what it is. Like, I was
you guys are obviously still good mates now.
Yeah, we're really close. You know, everyone always that's always a really big question people ask is like, you know, are you still mates? I'm like, of course we're still mates. Like,
I think
he did nothing wrong. He didn't put a gun to my head and tell me to get in the car.
Well, I think it's a big thing, right? Because you've been through such a massive change to accept the fact that it wasn't your friend's fault. Because it's very easy to be like, it's your fault.
Yeah, it's like, and I know a lot of people that have been in accidents that unfortunately are like that with their friends, like, or the ex-friends, you know, their friends were drunk or something doing stupid stuff, and you know, and they're obviously not close to them anymore. But you know, me and my mate, you know, I've never blamed him for a second. My family's never blamed him. You know, I might have got at it physically, but you know, for many years there, he struggled mentally, and
well, he'd be carrying the toll of the fact that, you know, now, you know, unfortunately you're in a wheelchair, right? Like, that's a big toll to be like he would blame himself that he did it, but it wasn't his fault at all.
No, not at all. Like, it was just
it's a freak accident, right? Like, it's no one's fault.
That's exactly the word. It's just an accident.
And the driver of the other car?
He climbed out.
Yeah.
He was pretty unscathed. I think he had some bit of bruising and stuff, and some minor injuries. But yeah, he got out. He climbed. He was reasonably fine. Like, he got out of the car and he was all right. So, you know, it's just, it is what it is. Like, my mate, he has a son. He had a son just before I went to Rio, and he actually named him Jayden.
Oh, dude, that's awesome.
So yeah, that's pretty
awesome,
cool.
right? Like,
poor kid, but still, like, but yeah, he
That's amazing.
So that's awesome. Like, you know, I was honoured for that. You know, for him to do that.
I just think it's great you guys are still friends after being through such a traumatic experience, because that is massive.
And you had the rugby to focus on.
Yeah, well, that's exactly right.
And you've done amazing things with the rugby. Like, people are going to give you more credit the fact of how far you've come from being in such a severe accident.
And you were travelling the world when you were, quite young. You weren't even 18.
Yeah,
well, maybe you were, but
I was 18
by the time
when
you
I
went
got
away.
I was 18 when I started on the squad, and I did my first tournament at the end of 2013 to South Africa. When I was just 19. So
wow,
yeah.
So 2 years after the accident, you're playing for Australia. Like, that's massive.
Yeah, so that's what I mean. Like, I was still in school when I had the accident. So I did my year 11. I was doing schooling in rehab. I was doing like as much as I could. You know, my school was just that. I don't know if I would have passed if it hadn't have been for my school in the way that they let me. You know, I just had to pretty much do the minimal amount I could possibly do, and to get a pass. Because I pretty much said if I didn't pass year 11, I wasn't going to go into year 12. Like,
well, that's fair, especially with everything you've just been through.
Well, you'd definitely be able to get some sort of special consideration.
Well, that's it. And even in year 12, like, I did an unscored VCE. Like, I didn't have to do exams. I wasn't planning on going to uni or anything. Like, I obviously had my eyes set on rugby, and, you know, I still passed with my VCE and that sort of thing. And they helped me out a lot, because I got about sort of end of first term in year 12, and I was like, I can't do this. Like, the stress of it. It was just too much. Like, I was still catching up. You know, I thought when I first went back to school that my brain was just sort of asleep, but then it wasn't actually until I was in school that it came to light, the actual... I knew I'd had a bit of bruising on my brain, but I didn't know that the damage had actually been done.
Wow.
So I ended up going through heaps of seeing specialists and got heaps of tests and that sort of stuff. And, you know, they told me that the frontal left lobe that got damaged was, you know, memory and concentration, and that's obviously why you're struggling in school and that sort of stuff. So,
well, that helps you as well, knowing that there is a problem and it's not just you going,
well, that's it. I thought I'd just been lazy for 6 months, and concentrating on other stuff and that sort of stuff.
But you've done an amazing job being in wheelchair rugby. You guys have smashed it. Like you got to. I know Tokyo wasn't the best experience because you didn't win, but it's necessarily not always about winning, right?
Yeah, well, that's it, and that's what I think the hardest on us as a team is just us as a team. Like, we're so hard on ourselves over the whole thing, and how devastated we are, and everyone else. But the support we got from back home, like just from everyone, was just that's what got us through. It was just overwhelming. We thought we were over there thinking that we've disappointed everyone, and
no, man,
not at all.
we were cheering on. Like, we've got a room up here with a TV where we were watching it, and Carol and I were like screaming at the TV, like, because you're into it, you're excited, you're like, come on, like,
cool.
Yeah,
it's just awesome.
That's what we want. That's what I mean. Like, we and I think as hard as the as Tokyo was, I think only being an hour time difference really helped our sport. Like, London was massive to sort of put rugby on the map for Australia. The guys won gold in 2012, and then I came on the squad the year after, and then obviously Rio, like, we had a much bigger support base back here, like fan base.
Yeah.
But obviously the time difference, like our final was like 3-4 in the morning over here, but being an hour difference in Tokyo was, and unfortunately for everyone else, everyone was in pretty much all of Victoria was in lockdown.
Yeah.
So a lot of people were at home, and
we're pumping it on our social because I'm like, you need to watch this. Like,
so many
support
people
these guys. Like,
it.
Well, it's just, I think too, getting over there with the pandemic and everything that's happened, and you guys not being able to play with each other or train for effectively half a year, like, just to reach there, it's, you deserve to be supported. Like, I think you need the support base back here.
Yeah, well, that's what got us through. Like I said, we didn't have the support there like we did in Rio. Like I was saying, like the crowds and stuff that we had in Rio were unbelievable, and you roll out, and it was weird. It didn't feel like a Paralympics at all. Like, we have a lot of comps that we go to overseas that have minimal crowds, like just purely where they are and when they're on and that sort of thing. Like, some bigger tournaments we have some good crowds, but some comps we go to we have like hardly anyone there, and it sort of, that's what was weird about it. It was like you roll out and everything's Paralympics, but there's no one. Like,
we were like, we're watching it, and I said to Caroline, because I don't even usually watch the Olympics, right? Because I'm just like, whatever, like these guys. But like, when I tuned on the air, I was like, oh, what a weird experience rolling out, and it just being silent.
Yeah, that was
like,
thing.
like it's just dead silent. You're like, oh wow, what an experience. Like,
and that's it, and that was on us. That was the thing that we were trying to do too. Is both teams were trying to be as loud as possible to sort of get that atmosphere and keep everyone pumped up. And that was the hardest thing, is if everyone went quiet, there was no crowd
cheering.
Silent,
right? It's just like, wow.
Usually,
because the crowd is what gets you like.
That's right.
Amped up.
We were yelling and screaming.
We were screaming
a lot
like crazy, like crazy people.
And we kept saying that on the sideline. Everyone back home screaming at TV. Everyone's back home yelling and supporting and that sort of thing. And we kept that in the back of our mind, knowing that even though if we did something good on call, we got a turnover or something, and the team cheered, but it was silent. We knew everyone back home was going.
Oh, dude, we were all like just screaming and going like crazy people.
Even the commentators were very complimentary as well. As soon as you got out, you got onto the.
Oh, they were complimenting you like crazy, man.
Here's Jayden Warn. He is absolutely superb. I was like, that's Jayden.
They were just pumping you up like
that
this talented player. It was really, really good. I was saying some choice words at the screen when France was rolling out. I was like, nah.
You get him, Jayden.
A bit, like, no, like, it's just.
No, that's fair enough. I think a lot of people were when we were playing over there. It's and I'm sure their supporters were doing the same for us. So
it's funny because I got an email from one of the Lego guys that, why was I not supporting Denmark? And I was like, well, Aussies are playing. Like, why would I be cheering on Denmark?
Boys.
that's exactly right.
Yeah, that was that was a rough start to the comp.
How do you train when you can't even see each other?
You can't.
That's the hardest thing.
But how does that work? Like,
we've got a pretty big, like, majority of our players Melbourne based. So we've got probably about half the team.
Most
Melbourne
of them, right?
Based. Yeah. So
it's because Riley especially lives in a mansion in Queensland, right?
No, he's in New South Wales.
He's in New South.
Yeah. So
I know Shay's here, isn't she?
Yeah, she's Melbourne based. Yeah. So I mean, like, we've got 2 players in, 3 players in New South, 2 in Brisbane, 1 in WA, and the rest of us are in Melbourne. So,
Well, Caroline and I just wanted to say a big thanks for joining us, having a chat. You know, it's a big experience, you know, traveling, doing the Paralympics, but I just want to say a big thank you for coming on.
Thank you so much.
We appreciate it. Thank you to everybody who's watching us. We'll put links to Jayden's social media so you can follow him on Instagram, and we'll put links to the Paralympic team and the wheelchair rugby. There's so many, but I'll put all the links. Thank you for watching, guys. We really, really appreciate it. Thanks,
Thank
Jayden.
you.
No, thank you for having me.
Nah,
It's a bloody
anytime,
honour
man.
to be here.
Thank you so much.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.